Maybe you could sort of summarize for us your view of television as a medium and sort of the opportunities for your clients.
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing going on, first of all, with CES is that there's a lot of talk about the hardware. 8K TVs, rollable TVs, and that sort of thing. But to your point, it's going to be more about the customization and the utility of televisions. Whether it's how you can customize it for yourself, whether it's how you bundle it and make it your own. More and more, the biggest challenge from a television perspective actually is the scale that it starts to afford with fragmentation and the proliferation of devices, over-the-top devices. And one of the biggest things that we're starting to see is the unbundling of services. When you look at streaming subscriptions, CTA is projecting that streaming service revenue is going to be up 27% within 2019. That's huge, and it has massive implications when you think about the control that it gives to consumers in terms of building their own packages with their own channels, their own networks. So creating greater fragmentation, but also greater addressability by understanding more about who those consumers are through the data that we have from the suppliers, providers, and carriers that are actually starting to create some of those bundles.
So we've heard a lot about that, about addressability. Not to get too deep in the weeds, but how valuable is addressability versus just brand advertising? And of course, you have big clients and some smaller ones, but how do you see the future of that and sort of the options that you might advise your clients?
Yeah, with the way things are going, we're starting to see greater fragmentation through kind of the proliferation of devices that we discussed. The opportunity lies in the perfect balance between the scale that TV can afford and actually the addressability that it creates. And I don't think we have many clients that are on one extreme or the other. We have a lot of small challenger brands that use addressable TV and some of the new technologies that are coming out to precisely target people who may be in market for a particular product or service. And we have a lot of clients who need scale and eyeballs and continued sort of reach and impressions. And it's the combination of those two and understanding where and how they intersect that's the art and science of what we do. And more that's going to come to the forefront of how we start to think about how we engage consumers and create sort of a purchase journey from start to finish.
Talk about sort of some of the issues around privacy and data that we've seen in the past year and sort of how that is impacting the business or the perception of the business.
The paradox that we have right now is that everybody wants to be as addressable and precise as possible. But in order to do that, it means that we need more data and more information from consumers, from providers, third party, first party, you name it. And that's the tension that we're constantly faced with. And so we're kind of missing a trick if you're looking around everything that's happening at CES and not talking about privacy. The challenge actually comes into the exchange that needs to be provided between both brand and advertiser and the consumers themselves. How much information are we as consumers willing to give up in exchange for more meaningful, more relevant sort of information, messages, whatever the case might be. And so the challenge that we have as we move forward is that there will be a continued abundance of information, largely personally identifiable information as people get more comfortable with sharing information. The challenge is going to be how do we ensure that we as an industry leverage that to the consumer's benefit without being intrusive or stepping on any regulatory changes that may be on the horizon.
Cool, and finally some thoughts from CES?
I think the big thing for me is I'm constantly amazed at how much people are still talking about the hardware at CES. It's amazing when you think about the fact that only 1 in 6 keynote addresses came from a hardware manufacturer. The other 5 actually came from companies that are either service providers, utility providers, or are talking about the practical application of some of the technology that we're seeing around us. So I think we've seen a shift over the last couple of years into what it means more for consumers and customers, and I think that trend will only continue. And it doesn't mean that hardware is going to go away. It's still the Consumer Electronics Show, but how technology can be applied to enrich and enhance consumers' lives is going to be the trend that we see moving forward.